Hello, everyone, and welcome to this amazing conversation we have prepared for you all with the University of New Hampshire's Impact Clinic. I'm joined with Fiona Wilson, who is the Director of Sustainability Institute. I'm here with Tom Ruff, who is the owner of Orange Bike Brewing, Caroline Cavalieri, who was a recent UNH graduate and was a project lead in the Impact Clinic, and Jeremy Pare, who is a sustainability consultant and served as the advisory board member. Good afternoon, you all.
Hello.
Good
Hey,
afternoon.
Lauren, thanks for having us.
Of course. We want to jump right into the conversation because we have a lot to unpack in a short amount of time. Fiona, I want to start with you. Could you tell us how the UNH Impact Clinic came about and how it has impacted the local community and your student advisors?
Yeah, I'd love to, Lauren. Thanks. And I'll take the first question first, and then maybe you can prompt me on the second one. So in terms of how the clinic came about, so UNH is a public university. As you mentioned, I lead our Sustainability Institute. And we're really thinking, in this decade leading up to 2030, we're really thinking about our public university mission and how we can really do two things. One is really to graduate thousands and thousands of young leaders, people like Caroline, who really have both the skill set and the mindset to be the leaders that we so desperately need to help us make this transition to sustainability and resilience. And then at the same time, as a public university, our goal is also to really support the businesses and other organizations in our region on that same transition, right? So we're trying to really think about how do we as a university connect with businesses like Orange Bright Brewing and really help them with their sustainability goals. So the B Impact Clinic is one of the many ways that we're doing that at UNH. I was lucky enough to learn about the B Impact Clinic model from a wonderful person called Jessica Thomas. She's at North Carolina State University. She really started the first B Impact Clinic in the country at a university. And a number of years ago, she generously shared some insights with us. And we created our own version of that clinic. We've now been running it for about 6 years. And it was really driven by the fact that we know that students like Caroline are looking for a different kind of education. They want hands-on learning. They want to be connected with real businesses, doing real things. And I think you'll hear from Caroline, they're really passionate about building a new kind of economy, right? Not the economy that is depletive and is extractive and causing so many of the challenges we see in the world, but really an economy that's full of businesses doing good things that are, net positive for the world. And then we also, started the clinic because we were having conversations with people like Tom, small business owners, new business owners who are really interested in B Corp certification, but they just didn't have the in-house capacity, time, skill to get it done. And so we said, okay, we've got these two demands from students, from companies. We have a solution to that. And so we started the clinic to really train students like Caroline in the methodology of the B Impact assessment and how companies get certified or recertified. And then we match them with companies like Orange Bright Brewing to help them complete the assessment and go down the path towards certification.
That's beautiful. I am curious to know, because we've talked before about the impact that the clinic has had on local business. What has that looked like in the 6 years that the clinic has been running?
Yeah, thanks for the reminder on that question. So we have at this point worked with just about, hang on, I have my statistics right here. So we worked with just about 50 businesses, 50 different clients. That equates to about 200 students. So each team is a team of 4 students. Caroline will tell you a little bit more about the team structure. And that equates across, so those students work for a 15-week semester with their matched client. Those students are doing at least 4 or 5 hours a week devoted to their project. So when you add all that up, it gets to be 12,000 hours student time working with their clients over the last few years. And if we just conservatively say that, we would, hypothetically, if those students were being paid $25 an hour, that equates to about $300,000 at least, conservatively, of kind of economic impact. The students are actually getting academic credit for this. This is embedded as part of their UNH education. And in terms of the clients we work with, we have had about 12 or 13 certifications. We've had almost 10 recertifications, and we've got a number of pending certifications as well. So, and in all cases, the clients we work with have kind of meaningfully increased their score on the B Impact assessment as part of the clinic.
I think that's amazing. And that takes us into a segue with Tom, who went through the Impact Clinic. Tom, can you tell us a little bit about how Orange Spike Brewing was introduced to the clinic?
Sure. So, and thanks for having me, Lauren. It's great to be here. And, Fiona sitting in front of us today, I had heard Fiona's name mentioned several times and a little bit about the B Impact Clinic, but knew nothing about it. And then I owned a medical company. I started 34 years ago. I recently sold that, and I started having health issues, and it turns out it was gluten. And I used to be a craft beer lover, and not having craft beer due to my gluten sensitivities is what prompted this whole project with the gluten-free brewery. But also, just with the world, this was 2020 is when, this happened. And with the world imploding, politics, George Floyd murdered, COVID, and there was another movement taking place, kind of a reckoning within the craft beverage sector, kind of the Me Too movement within the beer industry. And this was prompted by a brave woman brewer in Massachusetts 5 days after I had the idea to start this brewery. And so I did a deep dive. I almost thought about pulling out when I learned about the toxic side of the industry, and with, sexism, racism, discrimination, misogyny. And I have a 6-year-old daughter. At the time, she was a 4-year-old daughter. I thought about, this business. I did not want to just start another craft brewery. If we were going to do this, we were going to be a mission-driven brewery, and we would use this brewery as a platform to drive change in the industry, in the world, and the economy. And I didn't even mention with the climate, like imploding, and the world imploding regarding, climate and what's going on. I was freaked out. And so I started this venture, mission driven. Everyone advised me actually not to do anything with B Corp work, because as a startup, it's just not humanly possible. At the time, it was just me. I didn't even have another employee trying to build out this model. And it started as a small kind of a lifestyle project initially, like a $600,000 small scale. But then when I discovered kind of the opportunity on the business side, it's grown into a multi-million-dollar operation. But I did not have the support. And so I met with Fiona actually on a brew day when we were brewing one of our recipes with Alan Pugsley, by the way, which has transformed our project. He's a world famous master brewer that lives here in Maine. So he's driving the beer side of the project for us. So that allows me to focus on the business side. And so I had my interview with Fiona at the brewery on a brew day, Fiona and her team sharing the B Impact Clinic and the model for what they're doing and how they can support a small business and a small business owner who's stressed out, trying to raise a lot of money, trying to do good in the world, but not able to do so. And so Fiona, when I heard about this program, the support that they would offer, and with the next generation, the Gen Z, who I'm really empowered and excited to work with, the folks that are giving me hope for our future, because they're calling out, the BS when they see it, and the greenwashing and all the washing going on, which I love. So getting accepted into this program and working with Fiona, Caroline, and then Jeremy helped from my side to run kind of the Orange Bike business side. And then we had another advisor, Tara Jenkins, who's part of Conscious Capitalism and also a B Corp certified business. this student team transformed this project. And I know Caroline and the team don't realize the impact they've had on me and our organization, but through them, when I first did this assessment, Lauren, we scored a 28 on the B Impact Clinic certification process. I was so embarrassed by that score. And the thought of getting B Corp certified by just me, there's no way. I threw my hands up. I'm done. I can't do it. And I gave up hope. But thanks to Caroline and this team and working with them for this semester and have this student team like committed to our company, so focused, and with a strategy, a plan, weekly meetings, and Caroline really drove that, which, you know, I'm so grateful for that. But through this team and this semester, we were able to identify, I forget, what was the exact number, Caroline, for our increased score? It was close to 60 points.
I think it was about like higher 50s, about 60. So with your starting 28, it would push you to above 80 toward 90. Yeah.
So with that team's roadmap that they provided to Orange Bike, literally handed to us on our graduation day, the roadmap and said, here, now it's on you to carry this forward. And we will execute on their vision and strategy. And that's carried forward to this semester. Dr. Pare has helped us build out a new team that we just wrapped up this session yesterday, actually. So now we're building out a new cohort for the fall. So sorry to go on, but through these people sitting in front of you, it's how we've done it. You know, we never could have done it. We wouldn't be sitting here today, Lauren, if it wasn't for Fiona and Caroline and the B Impact Clinic at UNH.
Yeah, I'm curious, Tom, is there a specific impact area from the B Impact assessment that you have honed in on from all of the information that you've got from Caroline and the team at UNH?
Yeah, so we went through all the areas, and Jeremy's really good. Jeremy's the one for me he's on our advisory board, but he's also a business strategy guy on top of being a professor, on top of being gluten-free. So yeah, Jeremy's really good because I have all these ideas. I want to save the world and, you know, I want to do it all, but Jeremy's really good about, yeah, Tom, we can't do it all. You know, these are the areas. Let's lock it in and go for it. So I'll let Dr. Pare share, you know, the work that we're doing there, and especially with the SIPOC, because I've just been fascinated with this SIPOC model and what he's done there. But I'd love Jeremy to chime in on the structure that you put in place for us, you know, using the clinic as the tool to help us.
And I have to tell you that it's that energy that is so important to these types of projects, that it keeps me going. And yeah, someone who's had a health issue and is very much gluten-free because I have no stomach, but that's a story for another day. It makes these types of projects that much more, you know, passionate and purpose-based. And I think the purpose dynamic here is what's so important, especially if your firm is thinking about becoming a B Corp. It is difficult for sure, but at the same time, it's really about taking the steps from a process perspective to understand it. And I think that's where Caroline and Fiona and working through a clinical space like this really allowed for some exploration on a week-to-week basis, which a lot of firms don't afford themselves that time to do. And so when you're focusing on an impact area, Lauren, like you mentioned, I think the commitments themselves, Tom has a bunch of commitments in his world, which is wonderful. But we needed to, through this B Corp space, really start to hone in. And I think that's where Caroline and her team, as we met each week, I tried to lend some guidance each week and keep them moving. Caroline will speak to that, whether that worked or not, but I think it worked okay. Was this whole idea of really thinking about how do we hone in on those spaces so that we can see that improvement and get to that, you know, again, 80 points is that space, but at the same time, it was really about learning and guiding and moving to a spot where we could continuously improve. So I think the fact that it was possible was probably the biggest impact of this impact clinic. It was possible to get where we wanted to be.
I can also add.
Go ahead.
That I think governance specifically, if you want to think about an area on the assessment that was heavily looked at, I think for us we started with governance, and every week as we moved through our timeline, we would always touch back on those governance pieces because it was so foundational as to policies and ethics that Orange Bike wanted to ingrain. So I feel like that probably was one of the bigger impact areas that we saw working in the clinic together.
Caroline, while we have you, I'm curious to know from your perspective, because we talk a lot about what the next generation of business leaders and consumers looks like. So what drew you to the Impacts Clinic, and what was your experience like working with Tom and Orange Bike Brewing?
Yeah, so my junior year, I began volunteering with the New Hampshire Food Alliance and working with that team within the Sustainability Institute. I also did our semester in the city program, where I was able to take classes in Boston with the College for Social Innovation and do my internship here in Durham. So I kind of was putting my feelers out for the programs in the Sustainability Institute. And my peer-to-peer mentor was Jen Andrews, and she actually runs the Carbon Clinic. So I kind of got an introduction to the B Impact Clinic and what they were starting with the Carbon Clinic while I was in semester in the city. So I decided to apply and interview for the fall of my senior year, and it worked out. So I worked as just a student consultant with the Stout Heart team, which is a small marketing agency in Portsmouth. Who actually just became certified a few months ago, which is a big win. And then that work kind of just kept driving me. I enjoyed it so much, and being able to work on a team, that I decided to come back as a peer mentor to work with Orange Bike. And I think just the idea of being able to work with companies, real clients, real individuals throughout all levels of the organization was very appealing to me, because my time throughout college was kind of weird with COVID. Like my first full year at UNH was my junior year of college. So the ability to be able to work with a real company, I hadn't had that opportunity yet with any internships. I always worked for the UNH or did like an on-campus job or something like that. So I really wanted to branch out and meet people who were interested in doing good and focusing on all of those areas in the assessment, because when it comes down to it, it's so important that you're being thorough and looking at all those things. And it just helped me learn so much more about how a business operates and how it could operate if some systems were more accessible, or if there was just more purpose in terms of business instead of just driving a profit.
Right. So, as a recent graduate, I'm curious, has working with the clinic and seeing what business can be, has that shaped how you look at business? And has that led you to wanting to work with a B Corp or even starting your own business?
Yes, definitely. Definitely. I think it's kind of showed me how powerful the community is, and how much I can really dive deeper into public systems that shape these businesses. I'm pursuing my master's in public administration next fall, which is really exciting to be able to work kind of seeing how those systems operate and the accessibility within them, and how they do drive businesses, whether it's public, private, nonprofit. And it's just so refreshing to have worked with companies who want to do good, and from the start, like Orange Bike, and then being able to work with Stout Heart as well. They were an established company for, I want to say, 5 or 6 years before they started in the clinic. And Mariah, the owner, has just been like a ball of fire for those 6 years, wanting to constantly do good, and ethics just all over within every area of the business. So I think for me, I've known now that I would love to continue to be a part of this community and working to help kind of drive the access, and continue to give myself hope for sustainability in the future, and how that plays a role within businesses as well.
Yeah, I have one more question for you, maybe. What, as the next generation, Gen Z, how, from your perspective, what role does Gen Z play in the way companies do business? As I was talking to Tom, he told me about you all's this BS meter, and I thought that was so funny, but actually a good way to measure how companies do business. So I'm curious, from your perspective, what does that look like?
Yeah, so from the beginning, when Tom sat down with us for the first time, he was like, I want you guys to call me out on any BS. So that's where that kind of stemmed from, was just our first meeting. We all were very open and vulnerable to this idea that if we're all going to work together on this project, we all need to be honest and speak what each other's truths are and what our opinions are, so we can kind of form one unified opinion instead of all being all over the place. But I think my generation is very intentional and purposeful, I think. And I think, at least for myself, I want to see ethics ingrained in every level of business. And I think a lot of folks in my generation do too. And I think our generation is just such an advocate, and they'll continue to push businesses to make right decisions that will directly impact the consumers rather than the cash flow of the business. And I think that's very important, because like that's what I've learned about a lot in my classes junior and senior year for my business degree, was kind of this new wave of capitalism and how corporations can actually start to do good instead of just looking to turn that profit for their shareholders. So I think the more Gen Z students learn about business, the more it's going to show them how it should change for the better for our society, and how it can actually impact individuals on a small level instead of on a large profit scale.
And Fiona, I'm curious, from your perspective, since you have been with the clinic since its inception, what have you seen as far as trends go with your students coming through the program, as far as how they look at business and how they work with companies who are looking to do good?
Yeah, it's a great question, Lauren. So, I'll take it even outside of the clinic. So I spent the first 15 years or so of my career in the business world. I worked for some large global companies, and then in my mid-30s decided to go back and get a PhD and start teaching and leading in academic organizations. And so I've now been teaching and leading programs around B Corps for about 20 years. I was lucky enough, my dissertation for my PhD, I was doing that work in 2008, 2009. So just really when B Lab was getting started, the whole B Corp movement was getting started. And B Corps were a big piece of my dissertation. And I've been weaving it into my teaching, for the last 20 years or so. And it was so interesting, early on, very few students would know what the B Corp movement was. Many students, and I've consistently taught students in business schools like Caroline, but also I've taught students across the university from other different disciplines, different majors. And predominantly, the view coming in was, business is pretty evil. Business is kind of the source of many of the problems we face in the world today, and just huge skepticism that business really could be a force for good. And what's been really great to see, over particularly the last, I'd say 5 to 6 years, is just this real shift, much more awareness amongst students of the B Corp movement, still healthily skeptical, right? Rightly so. But really a growing awareness that there is a different kind of business. There's a different group of businesses that are redefining what success means, who are redefining the impact they can have for both their shareholders and their stakeholders. And so, you're seeing people like Caroline, right? They really want to work for and buy from, invest in companies that are aligned with their values. And we were talking a little bit earlier about greenwashing, and that's why we so enthusiastically started the B Impact Clinic, is because the B Impact assessment, that vehicle that B Lab created and maintains, is the most incredible teaching tool, right? It really allows students like Caroline to go in at a really granular level and really learn, like, what does it mean to be a truly sustainable, equitable, regenerative business, right? It's not just platitudes. It's not just a few, recycling and changing some light bulbs. This is deep work across all aspects of the business. And the B Impact Assessment is an incredible teaching framework, right? It essentially creates the curriculum for us, for the program, and just seeing just incredible enthusiasm for students. We always have more applications than we have places, so we are able to select really fantastic students like Caroline. But yeah, just, huge. And I think students also want something that they're not getting in their regular classrooms. I'm a professor. I'm a big fan of more traditional classes. That those are important, but as we like to say, that sort of more theoretical learning today is sort of necessary but not sufficient. And so we need to complement that with this kind of really immersive hands-on learning where students can learn skills, real world skills. They can learn about consulting and project management and communication, but they can also build networks, for their future careers with people like Tom and Jeremy.
Yeah, Jeremy, I'm curious to hear from you because you've been a part of the B Corp community for a number of years now. I mean, you're a huge proponent for not only the pipeline of students that come through the Impact Clinic, but consultants and businesses. I'm curious, what role do you see B Lab as an organization playing in fostering impact clinics and supporting the next generation of business owners and consumers?
Yeah, this space, and Fiona nailed it as far as thinking about this is such a great learning tool for everyone. And I think this is the opportunity because every organization needs a strategy. And Tom mentioned my strategic work, and this B Lab space provides that strategy, but it also allows for an enormous opportunity to identify what your place within that is going to look like. So B Lab provides the basic 5 areas, soon to be 10 potentially, obviously, if things start to change here, which I'm a major proponent of because it just adds another layer. Also, though, it can get that much more daunting. So I think there's a real fine line here that we have to be able to think about because it could become difficult for some firms if it's not couched in the right way. And this is where the clinic has allowed that to be really successful, I think. I saw a statistic recently where I think less than 1% of businesses are B Corps, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong. So there's a huge opportunity here for more people to get involved. And we need these clinics at like every school across the country. Frankly, it takes away from some of the uniqueness that is a UNHB clinic. But I could tell you, I've been part of the B academic community for a short period that's out of North Carolina State, Jessica Thomas's group down there. And just even being there for a small amount of time allowed me to realize the opportunity that is here with all of the different firms that can be part of it. And I think, again, B Lab really needs to be that space because I don't see a competitor, if you will. We're really thinking about this competitive capitalistic dynamic to be the transformation that is so needed in business, right? I mean, if you think about climate change, we talked about before, we're getting worse every year, not better, even with all of the commitments. And so at some point, we need business to really step up to the plate. B Lab can be that guiding force. And it's folks like Tom that want to do the right thing. They're going to help other people learn because they're part of this larger community. So that's where I really see B Lab as being the driver and so important. I also teach and I'm a professor at a couple of different schools, and not many of my students know what B Lab is. And so to me, there's an opportunity for a lot more growth. And that to me is the exciting part of this, and why, again, as I look at the landscape that I've been dealing with as a professional with businesses and in a consulting space, is really the guiding post that can be ubiquitous and internationally ubiquitous as well. Right? Many state-based programs, but here we're really starting to think about this in terms of a wider scope. So if you do have operations, Tom's going to grow. He's going to grow nationally. He's going to go internationally. I have no doubt. And I'm going to be there to watch that happen. And to me, if he expands into wherever that might be, he can still come back to B Labs and say, I need help. And this is the guidepost I'm going to utilize.
Okay. I know that we're coming up on time, so I want to leave room for advice that you all may have for prospective companies who want to certify, what that looks like, how they can join in on the impact clinics, or even other resources that you all may know of that you can share with them. And this question is for anyone.
Yeah, I
Can I
can.
real quick, Caroline, just to chime in on Jeremy's comment, and you brought up a good point, Jeremy. The B Labs, the structure, Lauren, we refer to that weekly. the work that we're really getting involved in now is the racial justice initiatives. That's kind of our driving force. And that for me personally is my number one commitment for the organization. And, Logan Nemick is another young student from University of Southern Maine. He was the main policy scholar that's actually been a part of Orange Bike Brewing through USM for going on 9 months now. And he's continued his work this summer. And just yesterday, I referred him to B Labs because some of the racial justice work and initiatives on building a more just and equitable business model, we're looking to do that within the craft beer sector. And I probably 3 to 5 times a week, I tell Logan, go to B Labs, dig, find the resources. We don't have to reinvent this. I'm sure they have like a roadmap. And that for me has been huge. And I'm actually on a plane tomorrow to Pittsburgh to meet with the new National Black Brewers Association, the first in the world. Tomorrow they're having a conference, and then the Barrel and Flow Festival, which is one of the top 10 beer festivals in the world for the Black-owned breweries. And so we're meeting with them to be an ally and supporter and move forward together strategically. So we're using B Labs infrastructure and models to share with the executive director from the National Black Brewers Association on here's our work. How can we put our heads together to move forward together using the B Labs infrastructure? So for me, that has been, I never could have done any of this if it weren't for the structure you have in place, which is free. It's open source shared, which we're looking to do with our business models. That's what Jeremy and Luke and the others at Orange Bike were doing, is we're building these models and sharing them with other businesses here in Maine. Say, look, we've already spent 2 years researching this. Here's the model. You have at it, and once you figure out some improvements, let's come back and let's build this together. So we're not each in our silo doing this work, but doing it together. So anyways, I just wanted to share that for what it's worth.
And since the clinic, I will say, since the clinic, it's been really interesting to watch more people come onto these calls each week as they're wanting to learn about this. And so the excitement that this can bring can really make this a space where, again, the learning takes place and it can make it more ubiquitous. Lauren, to your question, I think the Be Local groups, and Fiona may know more about this, but certainly they are a great place for folks to go to be able to understand what's going on locally and continue their learning journey. Tom's is a manufacturing space, and I have to tell you, there's less manufacturers, right, than there are of other people in this area because it's that much harder. And I think this is where we really need to put some critical time, and the Be Local groups can help all groups be part of that. But it's a really important factor here, especially as we look to have that impact for the folks that are manufacturing goods in particular, to be part of this. And again, the service dynamic can learn and teach. And that's where I think the Be Local, as well as the clinics, right, can really be, opportunistic in getting you to that next stage of your purpose-based growth.
I have a couple of closing thoughts to your question, Lauren, but I'm going to let Caroline go first because I know she has to leave us momentarily. So go ahead, Caroline, with your closing advice.
I was going to say, as a piece of advice, I think from what I've heard from clients at the beginning of the semester versus the end of the semester, when a company is looking for certification or to embark on this process, I think the biggest piece of advice I could give is to have someone dedicated on their team to working through this process, because that's what the organization of that is what's going to drive the success of the work that is being done. Because if there is not one or a handful of people focusing on just this work, it's not all going to get done, and it's hard to spread it out across the organization to all these different people, unless there's one person specifically who has their head screwed on straight through all the sustainability measures and through all the 5 areas of the assessment. That if there's one person dedicated to it, you can really drive some change there.
That's great, Caroline. I would say, in answer to your question, Lauren, for businesses who are considering B Corp certification, definitely find help, right? Whether it's one of the impact clinics, there's, I think, 16 or 17 of them around the country at different universities now. But there's also wonderful consultants in the B Corp space who can help you as well if you want to bring on consultants, including some students who there's 3 or 4 students who've graduated from our B Impact Clinic and now have their own consulting businesses helping businesses get B Corp certified. So there's lots of resources to help companies get B Corp certified. You know, it's hard. B Corp certification is hard, and it's sort of meant to be hard, right? I mean, it doesn't have value unless it has rigor. And so I would just say, like, just commit to trying, right? You don't have to, it's all confidential. You know, you can sign up, you can get the impact assessment for your company, your industry, you can go through it. You know, like Tom, you know, when he first did it, it was 20 something points. No one knows that except you. But what it does is it gives you a roadmap for how to get there. So, you know, you don't have to commit to getting there. You have to commit to trying. And I think the rewards are really significant. You know, I think it's just a better way to be in business. It feels good to be a business leader, knowing that you're doing many of the things that are really helping contribute to a more sustainable and equitable world. To Jeremy's point about the B locals around the country, you know, we are part of the B local in Portland, Maine. There's 18 B Corps now in the state of Maine, where one of my colleagues at UNH is helping start one for New Hampshire. There's 18 B Corps now in New Hampshire too. It's a great community. You know, they're the right people you want to be hanging out with at this moment in human history, I think. I think Tom can speak to that. You know, it's lonely being a business owner, and it's really nice to be part of a community of like-minded people. So, you know, I think it helps you attract and retain employees. It helps you attract customers increasingly. Just a great thing to do, even though it has rigor to it.
I appreciate all of that advice. That's very good advice, y'all. And thank you all so much for joining me. I want to leave room for you all to finish your days. Thank you, Caroline. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Fiona. And everyone, if you want to learn more about becoming a B Corp or what certification looks like, you can go to weareBcorps.com. All right. Thank you. Bye, y'all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Lauren. Thanks for hosting this.
Thanks for having us, Lauren.
Bye-bye.
I know.